All right, we have a guest, long-awaited guest, at least long-awaited for me today, that I'm super excited to introduce and have a conversation with, and just share for the Digital Recruiter listeners of just the incredible success and kind of how it came to be, the fruition. Digital Recruiter helped a little bit; he carried a lot of it. Uh, awesome person, super smart, great recruiter, great business owner, Walker Freeman. How you doing, my friend?
Good, Clark. It's definitely been a long time coming. So awesome to be on the show. So a little bit about me before we jump into CR strategies. I started within my industry with no staffing experience whatsoever around 4 years ago. Started working at an entry level position with a company called PPD right before a large acquisition with a company called Thermo Fisher. Worked my way over to Premier Research and worked a little bit in the women's health and oncology space within clinical research, and then had my most recent stint before I kind of became a full-time entrepreneur with Parexel under their full service provider model with Moderna. So kind of a whole lot of everything in a short period of time to kind of lead me up to here. So CRO strategies
Yeah.
definitely had a huge bump from digital recruiter. I had, like I said, no experience whatsoever in staffing. But CRO Strategies is essentially a very, very niche staffing agency within pharma and clinical research.
Wait,
You
let
know,
me stop you there for a second. What you had this clinical research, you're in clinical research.
mhm.
Why recruiting? Why start a recruiting company?
Okay, yeah. So my brother is actually a director of recruiting. Was kind of the first piece. I
Yeah.
knew I wanted to create some sort of business later down the road. Didn't really have too much direction. Um, when I got into clinical research, it was post COVID. So everything was hot. The market was hot. There was tons of staffing agencies everywhere. I was never super visible on LinkedIn, but whenever I was visible on LinkedIn after I kind of got the CRA title, it's a very it's a very high turnover and volatile position. So staffing agencies would always reach out to me. And kind of the cliche story that I always tell in my pitch about my business is that growing up, my grandfather used to always tell me to find something that was broke and fix it. And one thing that was very, very broke, especially in clinical research, when you're talking about patient safety, and helping develop drugs that can potentially save people's lives one day, is making sure that the people that are verifying and QCing all the steps leading up to that know what they're talking about. And a large step with that is having people vet those people out before hiring them. So I would get reached out to by staffing agencies that would misuse acronyms. That just it was inherently obvious that there was no connection between client and candidate and what was going on. It was merely transactional, which I thought was the bottleneck right there. And so that was that was the beginning of the idea. And then 2 or 3 weeks after I started my LLC, I got directly outreached by a technique that you taught me through Digital Recruiter from one of your employees that now I use to get all of my business. So it's very full circle in terms of outreach methods and how everything has came together. So really excited to chat about every aspect of that here.
Well, let's go back to that because I think that was February 2023. We're at June 2024 now. So I'm not a mathematician, but I think we're at 15, 16 months there.
Hmm.
From, yeah, I think it was. It was Christina did the initial outreach,
Yeah,
which
yeah. She
actually,
hooked me so quickly,
yeah,
so
she got
quickly.
you. She got you. So, also a digital recruiter student turned now team member. Uh, so
Hmm.
she hooked you. What was it? What what were you searching for at the time?
Direction.
Yeah.
I had a vision. I knew what I wanted to do, but I had no idea how to do it. Um, Whenever I'm learning something new, I'm sure many people are like this. You handhold me once, I feel like I can kind of run with it. So I needed someone to kind of give me the material to succeed, and then it was kind of up to me to determine my fate with the materials that I was given. And Christina was fabulous at kind of grabbing my attention and presenting what I needed. And yeah, it's kind of how that relationship formed 15
What
months later.
it's and there's a lot to cover. I mean, you've in that time I know raised with current clients, brought stuff in. You've now added contractors. You do stuff in different ventures as well. I mean, you have leveraged not only just the recruiting to make money there, but now you added contractors and some other revenue streams that we're going to talk about. But I think it's
Yeah.
super cool and kind of just the way you leverage your network and continue to leverage your network, your industry expertise. But I think also just the humility you had there of like, okay, my brother's been a recruiter. You probably got some of that from him. I'm like, dude, this isn't as easy as you think. Because a lot of people come with your story. I'm in the industry, recruiters hit me up and they don't know what they're talking about. And then immediately think like, I got this. I'm going to be the best clinical research recruiter. But did it help knowing, like, hearing your brother's experience? Knowing like, hey, this is still a grind. Like, you can be better, but this is still a grind. Did he kind of give you a heads up there, or like, what was his words to you?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like anyone that has a conversation with me can very quickly tell that I could talk to a brick wall. I love socializing and talking, but one of the things that I didn't realize that's so prominent in staffing and the ability to source people and get from step A to Z is the amount of talking and repetitive conversations you have to have with, especially if you aren't sacrificing quantity over quality. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
go through 20 people to find someone that's maybe as half as good as you feel comfortable presenting to your clients. So it's definitely a repetition. And if you're not in it or if you go into it with the thought of, oh, I'm definitely going to get someone hired today, you're sacrificing quality, I think. So I think for me, my brother used to always talk about how he would go through 15, 20 people before he even would find someone that would remotely be considered for a position. So it's definitely a grind. And it's not as easy as just sifting through resumes and piecing puzzles together, which I'm still learning to do because it's still relatively new to me, So.
Well, and given how much short term success you've had just in a short amount of time, I mean, I think that's one of the approaches that I've always respected about you is you just like there's always more to learn. There's more to learn. It's never like you can execute and do a great job now, but it's just that constant learning, that constant evolution. I mean, what made is it's kind of always is that part always kind of been in you? Did they kind of learn more of that in recruiting? Like where where did you realize like that was so necessary? Because some people just bill enough and they feel like they got nothing to learn from anyone else in recruiting. It's kind of interesting, like where you got that mindset to just like always be evolving and learning.
Yeah, well, so for me, the repetitions of recruiting was the hard part, and just understanding the traditional workflow and processes of vetting, and then having your internal meetings, and then what comes after that. That's what I had to learn. For me, I love getting on phone calls with people and talking about clinical research, which I knew was probably more of a pain point for most other staffing agencies.
Yeah.
Most other staffing agencies have all of these candidates that they've sourced, and the harder call for them is to kind of speak the language with their clients. My last role as a CRA, all I did was train site staff, monitor data, and really be the middleman between the CROs and the sites. And so I was helping guide the sites, and I was communicating with those positions on a daily basis that I then went to pilot my business off of. So when a client was interested in speaking with me, I would know that, hey, they probably already spoke to other staffing agencies, and I'm going to be able to give them a value prop that they've never really heard before. So when I would get on the phone with them, the staffing conversation would kind of naturally slide itself in, but we would kind of just talk shop about clinical research and, bottlenecks at their research sites, how many qualification visits they've been doing, just kind of cementing myself that, hey, I know the industry. I know the pain points. I know what most research sites struggle with. I know what most sites need help with. I want you to know that I'm on your team as someone that has been in the industry and isn't just trying to make a buck and place a person, essentially.
I love that. I love that. And so you talked about you were needing direction. What direction or what vision did you have for CRO strategies at that time?
Yeah. Not much, and that's where your program kind of came in. My thing was time, um, and you knew this from the jump when we started our collaboration. I needed something that could work for me while I was working. I was never even going to think about stepping away from my day job until the business was at a point where I saw that vision 100%, or financially it just made sense. So I needed something that I could, work on the weekend to build and pipeline. And then while I'm working during the week, um, it's still going and still generating leads so that, when I come to my computer, I'm answering emails and I'm working on things that directly need my attention funneled in from my business development pipeline. And that
Absolutely.
was the biggest gain from digital recruiter, aside from the content and the building of the brand. But just time management was giant for me.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I loved your value prop when we first spoke. Clearly, you were good on the phones and on calls, knew your industry in and out. I'm like, all right, you just need kind of the sales framework, number one. And once we had a couple calls on that and a couple live scenarios, I mean, you were off and running on that, which is great. And then, yeah, the automation piece was a game changer. I mean, I think you had like 40, 50 connections and now 2,500 plus,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
is huge, right? You built that ecosystem. You're definitely a micro influencer in your community, in that clinical research community. And that was kind of the goal. Like, how do we do that? And it only takes you maybe an hour or two a week. And I think at that you signed up where we created the first couple of campaigns for you, the first what 2 to 3 months of content,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
for you, right? Kind of that hands-on hybrid approach where we build it and hand it off to you. I mean, that first campaign, you got a client how long after that launched?
So funny enough, I got my first client with Digital Recruiter, I think 2 or 3 weeks into us starting our first campaign. And to this day, they are my largest client I've ever signed. And I mean, the relationships from that particular client are 100 times as advanced as I ever could have even imagined. And if it expand into different businesses, have expanded to different staffing aspects and things completely unrelated to staffing. So yeah, very, very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think the that response, I remember that came within the first couple of days, and then you
Hmm.
signed them within a couple of weeks. I mean, I think alone just on that campaign, I mean, you definitely 50. I think about 50x your ROI.
Yeah.
If I remember the just the 1 year one alone, and then just on that one client, which is fun and exciting, and I know people like to throw out those numbers, but it was more such a validation, I feel like, for your industry knowledge with the right direction, the right framework. You're like, wait, I did this once. You blew them away on the first call because of everything you knew, right? I mean, I think talk about that. I mean, it's fun to get short term results, but what did that do for your vision, your direction in terms of your confidence long term for your
Oh,
business?
no, for sure. Confidence, right? And it just happened so that this research site that I was working with is one of the biggest in the country. So my conversations with them also leading into it um, were rather relaxed because I knew that these people have gone down this avenue with other staffing agencies, and hey, they're still looking, so it must have not been good. Let me rewire their brain. Let me go into the conversation, not even really talk about staffing, and let that gravitate towards me towards the end of the conversation so it doesn't seem transactional. I want to talk to them about, talk to me a little bit about your turnover of your coordinators. What do you think steering them away from your research site? How could a vendor come in to help, and then kind of smaller conversations around that are just solely associated on therapeutic indications and research trials and all of this stuff. So the call itself was very uplifting in terms of my confidence on the back end, but I kind of went into it knowing that if they were going to chat with me, they probably have had pretty negative experience with staffing agencies, which was true. So yeah.
Almost always the case. I remember there was like one current client had lower rates than I think you would have liked.
Oh yeah.
I guess talk about because
That's a good point I left out on. That's a fun
yeah.
one.
Well, I think it connects that client with this meeting. We had some conversations around here's like how to kind of look at what your value is, right? And
Yeah.
like this is the connecting the dots with pricing, with the value of the surface. How do you kind of want to get into like what those
Yeah.
conversations were like and how that helped? Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and I should absolutely put that into the beginning, but it just totally went out the other side of my head. But so before CRO Strategies was created into an actual brand that I was doing actual BD and outreach for, I piloted my business with a client and gave them an absolutely insane term. I was staffing for these people for, I want to say like 4 or 5 months, and I think I was charging them 4% annual on FTE,
Oh,
which
I
to
thought it was
me,
6. I didn't know it was that long.
four or
Yeah.
five, I honestly cannot remember. It was around one of those numbers. Maybe six does sound right. I think six is right, but it was incredibly below market, and 6% of $70,000 to me at that time, I was like, wow, that's awesome, right?
Because you're working full time, you're making
Yeah.
money, like you're good. It's like it's bonus money, right? It's
Yeah,
vacation
yeah.
money.
You're like,
Yeah,
oh, okay, this is awesome.
yeah.
But so I mean, I knew that that wasn't going to be the fee moving forward, but I had no idea of the I never did any market analysis. I went into this knowing, hey, I know what I want to do. I know what I want to have to offer. Let me send them a contract. No, none of the million steps in between. There is none of the million steps in between. And I staffed them some really, really high end people that are still at that organization now. But also, that was a stepping stone that I would never change in my business because, um, if it wasn't for that, it would have never shown me what it could have been. And if you give people, you scratch someone else's back and they'll scratch yours. So I did that for 4 or 5 months with them and then got up to, I think like 18%.
You end up getting it at 22. I'm pretty sure from
At
what
22.
what you
Okay.
told me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, basically got them up to more industry rates, and then worked with them for a couple more months. Kind of grew out of that particular relationship and kind of threw all my eggs in the basket with the client that you and I were talking about where, did some percentage based staffing with them for, maybe 2 or 3 months, hired them like 4 people. And then we just had so much business coming in the pipeline that we just started flat rating specific roles just to kind of help both sides out, which to me, I was completely okay with that because of the volume of recruiting and how easy it was for me to vet these roles out because of my understanding of the qualifiers and the disqualifiers.
Well, talk about that. What did you learn? Getting into we've laughed about the rates. I know
Oh,
recruiters.
it's comical.
I know recruiters are listening and be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe you did that." But you got to realize when you're coming in and you don't know, right? You want to validate. Like when I started coaching, I wanted to get a couple people in at a beta program, beta offer, and validate what my kind of hypothesis was of what digital recruiter could be.
Yeah.
It worked out great, and you build up your confidence into rates through doing that.
Yep.
And sometimes that's just going to be the reality for some people. A lot of veteran recruiters, I would never do that. It's just like you don't
Yeah,
know.
well, it's like I'm brand new. I mean, if
Yeah.
I'm me being brand new to staffing, don't really have any visibility. If I go to a client and I'm like, hey, I want to help you staff your research site, and I don't have any of the other steps leading up to all of the hard work that goes into the vetting process and all this, that, and this. But oh, hey, I also want to charge you 22% for this. They're going to be like, okay, but why? I know why because I went through the steps to justify the why as to getting to that number, right? Which was a huge developmental piece for me, not only in staffing but other legs of my business in terms of market value and being confident with my pricing and not feeling like I'm leaving money on the table for either side. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
What I'm charging is what I'm comfortable charging, and if someone doesn't accept it, they don't see the value in it, and that's okay. So
And you can get better at positioning that value and leveraging
absolutely.
your positioning. And we can kind of go back to the first 3 months that we started working together. You start getting calls, you get a client. I remember the texts were coming in. You're like, dude, I got this placement happening and this, and bank account went from zero to this number. Like, what
Yeah.
was like, what were you going through or thinking at that time?
It
What did
was
it do to your life? Yeah,
it was confusing because I had a job that I had been working really, really hard to get for the past couple of years. I mean, in my industry, the position that I had is one that a lot of people really strive to go for, and that's what I've been doing since I worked as a clinical trial coordinator at PPD. Being a CRA was like I don't want to say end game, but it was one of the positions that I was striving to go for, and then I got it, and then this kind of fell onto my plate. So that's kind of how that happened. But in terms of financial stability and all that stuff, it was amazing. I mean, I didn't grow up from in a very wealthy family or anything like that, and I actually took on money to get my business started, which was piloted through your course. One of my best friends actually invested into my business, which the investment was paid into your program. So there was a lot that went into it on the back end to kind of make it happen. Um, but but yeah.
and then so then a few weeks in, you start getting meetings and connections and content impressions and salary. So you're thinking, all right, this system somehow can work,
Yeah.
right? Versus, I know there's some skepticism. Your brother's in recruiting. Wait, what does this guy actually do? Does he know
Yeah, yeah.
recruiting, right? And all that. And then within a month, you're like, okay, like this is working, right? And then you kind of create revenue. Like, what was kind of the game plan? I mean, did this kind of feel real you were coming through? Like, what was it like having kind of new clients in a system that was you were always having conversations in the inbox? You were able now to get more candidates, right? It's like your database was building of candidates. You
Yep.
were adding clients. Those conversations were going well. Like, how long did it take for you to really feel like, okay, I think I got this?
Yeah, probably 4 or 5 months in,
Yeah,
after I signed an additional client and kind of realized that it wasn't kind of a one-off. I
yeah,
mean, still, even with any type of program that you buy, you're only as good as the materials that you're given to run with. It's not an automatic um, anything, right? I mean, I still had to do a lot of work to get those particular clients. Um, but but yeah, I mean, I think 4 or 5 months probably let me know that I was in a good position. But it kind of all circles back around to the time thing. While I had those two clients, I was still 90% allocated to my day job.
yeah.
So it was very hard to um, juggle both. And when I was, it was never CRO strategies in the front runner. And
Yeah.
now it is, which is great. And that's what I love. And that's what's really allowed me to kind of push forward into some other realms of my business.
Well, that's what I want to give people. There's two things I want to talk about: is making an investment like that in yourself in the business, and number two, kind of the work that you put in. Uh, I mean, we'll talk about investment first. Like, what inspired you to invest in your business? Because some people don't want to pull the trigger. Some listeners, like don't know if they can. Right? You had a friend that invested, a partner believed in you,
Hmm.
obviously, and you obviously believed in Digital Recruiter enough to kind of make that,
Yeah.
to dive in. What was it that was just like the yay, like versus yay or nay, but like the yay, I'm going into this.
Yeah.
What was that deciding factor for you?
Well, Christina, I mean, Christina sold me, and I think she knew that I just needed direction. Like I said, zero experience in it,
Yeah,
and your guys' platform was tailored to brand new recruiters, and I feel like it's also tailored to experienced recruiters.
yeah.
And if those are tailored to both, I don't see why I would, go with any other option, especially if I can mix and match in terms of the people that I'm working with. I remember when your program first started, we would have these huge group chats. Everyone was very supportive. We would all chat in meetings, and I got to meet some really, really cool people. I got access to a bunch of vendors. I know you introduced me to my current EOR, who's fabulous. Background check people. So it was everything's about timing, and the timing with all of this was just so amazing. I got my hand held through certain parts of things, and that's what I needed to kind of succeed and blossom with my business to the way that I knew that I could kind of build it to. But the tools that you guys gave in the beginning set the runway for me for sure.
Well, and I love that you saw it and invested in it. But what I keep hearing, which I always tell people, is like, dude, you squeezed every bit out of this that you could. Right,
Hmm.
you showed up to calls. You were texting me. We were on one-on-one calls. We were setting stuff up for you. You were bouncing ideas off me, strategies like, could this work? Could that work? What do you think of this? This is what's going on. I mean, you were working your tail off. I mean, I know you say 90% was dedicated to your job, but that 10%, it wasn't like you were spending 20 minutes a day. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
you
no, yeah.
were you were working how many hours a day? Probably most of last year.
I mean, 9 to 5, and then I'd take an hour or so to go to the gym, play with my dog, and then probably stay up till like 1 every day, and then wake up at you know.
You were doing it consistently. Like, I remember when I was getting the messages or the text, or I could see, when you were working on stuff in the program, with your worksheets or whatever, building campaigns. And I can testify, you don't get the results they do. I think sometimes that's people think we're like a genie in a lamp, right? We snap the fingers and like, boom, you're a digital recruiter, and here's all your money, right? It's
Yeah,
not quite how it works.
yeah,
The system, the automation, the content, the holistic approach is gold. It's magic, and it works. I've seen it work time and time again. Uh, that showing up, I think you always had a great attitude about it. Always been confident in your niche, in your industry, and your industry knowledge. You're like, hey, just give me direction. I'll listen and I'll go implement it, and then maybe I can evolve it and make it better in my own way as
yeah,
well. Which is exactly what I want. We want to teach people to. We want to have direction, but think critically and intentionally about every bit of your business. And like, I don't think anyone exemplifies that more than you do, of like just what you've been able to run and take the kind of the foundation that we help build with you, and kind of you just run with. Like, that's the magic in coaching and training, right? Belichick can set up Brady in the offense, but they got to do it. They got to run the
yeah,
play,
yeah.
and, and that's very much kind of how it was. There's no, is it Clark? Is it Walker? It's definitely Walker, right? Like, you went out and made it happen.
No, I
Just
appreciate
help
it.
help give the game plan, and dude, you worked your tail off to make it happen, and it resulted in what? I mean, what was kind of the ballpark last year for revenue? Yeah,
I did a little over 500,000 last year.
as a side hustle
Yeah,
for those listening, quote unquote. That was a full time side hustle. Don't get it twisted, but it's amazing, man. Like, it's amazing what you're able to do to build. But that value prop, that industry expertise, where I keep telling people, own the niche. Like, you're not siloing yourself. Like, it's, you can own it, and again, riches in the niches for a reason. You do that, you work hard, you have the right system. Like, the opportunities are there,
yeah,
and that's what's
for
super
sure.
cool to see the way you've capitalized on it.
Yeah, and specifically about the conversation of the niche, like um, I really want to open up another LLC under CRO strategies one day and have separate departments for other niches and hire people that maybe don't even have recruiting experience and they have extreme knowledge within their industry, just kind of like how I did, and try to hit the reset button.
Yeah,
I knew that if I had a value prop of understanding the language of the industry and how that wheel turns, the other pieces would be a lot less stressful. And so, you learn, you can learn things that are hard in a place of comfort, and it makes it a lot easier to digest. And so that's kind of my thought process behind starting in clinical research. And that's my plan moving into other aspects, whether that's my brother coming on and helping in the tech side of things, or whoever else seems to be interested in, creating more opportunities for placing people into good organizations.
absolutely. And you can always build out different verticals. I mean, Aerotech started in aviation engineering. Yeah, I mean, and now they have
Yeah.
10 different verticals, different business units, everything. I mean, it's
Yeah.
huge, right?
Yeah.
Billions of dollars. So that's how it starts, right? Start enough to build a runway, to build, have enough for a runway so you don't sell in fear, and then build on it, validate your business, save
Yeah.
up, and then you can start to look at expansion. And there's different ways to do it, and you don't have to scale overnight, right? You can
No.
really validate what you're doing, make some good money in this industry while you're doing that, and not necessarily be in a rush, right? You
Yeah.
almost want to rush getting a good approach and system that you feel good
Absolutely.
about, and then you can kind of just keep at it, be deliberate, intentional, right? And kind of just see things and opportunities start to pop up organically a little
Yep.
bit just from those efforts. And I don't know how much we want to kind of go into that
Yeah.
piece of it. Like, what are some of the opportunities that stem just from the recruiting work you were doing?
Yeah. So, I mean, just relationships. Uh, Life in general is networking. Everything in life is networking. Um, the biggest for me specifically in my industry, I initially wanted to work with CROs to begin with. Now I do because I've built up that foundation and I've taken that leap. But in the beginning, all I worked was with research sites. Research sites have the hardest job in our industry. They're the center for the patients. They have a ginormous burn rate. Sponsors and CROs don't pay them on time, and their turnover is insane. So I wanted to find something that I could do for research sites that I knew was a bottleneck. Um, Not every research site has the funds to spend on an FTE business development person. So I have a leg of my business that's called trial matching. And so I essentially do performance based business development for my clients. And so basically, the really amazing thing that I learned in digital recruiter is leveraging tech stacks to operationalize business development from a couple different angles. We used a particular program in digital recruiter that has a very similar interface to some of the higher end sourcing platforms and in more in-depth automation platforms. And so I kind of pieced that puzzle together and I thought, wait a second, why am I only allowing myself to utilize this with staffing? Um, Business development is networking, knowing your value prop and getting in front of the right person. So I wanted to utilize those programs to help my research sites with the hardest thing possible. And that's getting in front of pharmaceutical companies that, align with their physicians' therapeutic areas for trials and their patients to, help advance the sponsor's clinical development. So I found that by giving these research sites trials on a performance basis, so they're not burning a retainer, they're not burning any type of upfront fee, they're the payee on everything. I get paid on the back end when they're generating revenue. The more revenue that is generated from these research trials creates more staff. So the staff comes under the trials, and the more business I bring, it just creates an ecosystem, and that wheel starts turning, and it keeps turning. Walker, thank you for these trials. We need more staff. Not really how the conversation goes, but the basis of it.
Yeah.
And so my business is kind of transformed into staffing is still a big part of what I do. But I've just found more leverage in other ways to assist research sites in the areas that they're going to struggle with because they have to worry about everything else that they have to pay for with their clinical staff. And so that also led to me connecting with private equity. My biggest thing is trying to be a full service consulting agency. I don't want to be a one stop shop. I want to be able to help them throughout their entire duration of their business in general, from A to Z. I'm not in business to kind of do, just one off. So I've also kind of partnered up with some private equity firms to where, if we build up that site, with really good staff. We build up that site with a ton of pipeline of trials. Hey, I would love to introduce you to this private equity firm. They're interested in potentially assisting you with either investors or a exit strategy. Let's have a conversation. So it's kind of become a lot more than a staffing agency, but all aspects of the business feed each other to the same common goal, which has
Yep.
been really, really fun and rewarding to see kind of come together in the last 6 months or so as I've thrown that into my capabilities.
Well, I mean, it's just understanding the whole business cycle we talked about, right? I mean, you see the bottlenecks. Okay, what are the bottlenecks, the objections before they even get to hiring staff, and
Hmm.
fix those. And then when they finally clear up the path to hire staff, who are they going to go to? Well, you. Hey,
Yeah.
we can also do this. So that was brilliant. The PE angle was brilliant, and I'm going to ask a couple questions about that because a lot of recruiters have heard about that approach, that strategy. It's one that I've helped people implement in digital recruiter as well. Targeting PE, VC, you know, members, employees, if you will, to kind of build that network there. Because if I'm not, I think you broke because it puts you in a position where you could broker that piece. And for those that don't know, if you broker certain things, like you get a percentage off that too.
Yep.
And I don't know if you want to throw out those numbers. People can research numbers themselves of what research sites go for, but it's not bad. It's
Yeah.
worth a couple placements, to put it mildly. Maybe a
Yeah.
couple
Yeah.
dozen placements.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we could kind of go into that a little bit, but even kind of just the PE, like, how did that, like, where did you build those relationships? Is that LinkedIn? Is that your personal network? Is that college? Like, how'd you even go about that?
Just networking. I mean,
Yeah.
one thing with recruiting is that you're helping people at the end of the day also. And when you help people, they open doors to people that have helped them in the past, which just kind of creates a channel of just awesome people. So I was actually working with another client of mine that used to own a research site, and I found her through my business development efforts, and I was helping her company staff. And she had a research site maybe I think 5 years ago that sold, and she's one of those people. Um, Her name's Lisa. She's one of those people that when she introduces you to someone, you do whatever you need to do to get on the phone with them because they're going to give you some sort of value. And I know those type of people within my network, and I'll drop whatever I'm doing to just have an informal conversation with those people because you kind of gauge people out in terms of the people that they refer to you and the quality of people. And every person that Lisa and a couple of other people that I've met over the couple last year and a half or so have just been insanely leveling to my network. And she introduced me to him. Um, I was chatting with him about some very high performing clients of mine. The light bulb went off in my head. It went off in his head. I say, hey, let's connect. And then
Yeah.
it's a process that is extremely lengthy. Lots and lots of steps still going on right now, but the process itself is really cool. But like kind of like how you and I were talking, it's just very, very, very amazing to see how one leg of a business can kind of tunnel into other ventures kind of under that same umbrella. And it all stems from understanding how to network with people, which was the centerpiece of your program, which was built around content and really unique business development strategies, which I will use with my company till the day I don't have my company anymore.
And hopefully that's for very good reasons, right?
Yeah.
If that ever becomes the case, and I think that's what I love is I talk about the three C's all the time: connect, content, and call. And no one epitomizes that more than what you've done. You utilize this to connect with people every single day, potential clients, potential candidates. You're posting consistently, even if you're exhausted or whatever. We were creating some content, but then periods where we weren't, right? You made it happen. You saw some of the frameworks of what was working. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to try some stuff on my own. And you've had posts that do incredibly well. I mean, consistent triple digits that are all you, right? Taking the frameworks and evolving it and adapting it and molding it to make it your own. And then you love being on the phones and calling. And I think you get on calls without the expectation of having to make money from that call.
Yeah.
And but because we built the ecosystem to kind of have you as almost like a micro influencer in your network, it's almost always a relevant conversation,
Yeah.
right? And but you also might not know where it goes. I think some people try to control the conversation versus just wait. If I can ask some of the right questions, and kind of in that, I'm probably going to be able to demonstrate some of my knowledge and some of my potential value to that person. But I can
Yeah.
also find out more intel to see what pieces I can put together. I think you have an innate trust in yourself to know that if you have the intel, you can figure out some of the pieces for
Yeah.
people. And I think that's such a key piece in recruiting and just in
Yeah.
business in general. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that one thing that people do wrong is going into and this sounds odd, but going into a business development conversation with the thought of making money from the call, that's not how that works. I mean, indirectly, domino effect maybe, but you're not going to just get on a call with someone and make money. If there's a gap that needs to be filled and your company can fill it, the conversation will effortlessly move into those stages and those processes dependent on your client's priority with that.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really big thing. And I know I've said this 100 times with you is I don't, I prep for certain meetings when I'm reading the room or the organization that I'm going to be working with. But I think a big thing to do is realize at the end of the day, we're all human and no one wants to join a call and listen to someone talk like a robot pitch for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I think with my industry, I'm able to get away with that a little bit just because I can steer the conversation that I want because I've worked kind of in those roles before that I'm recruiting for. But I just think that being more personable with your clients and maybe going out of your way to form that type of relationship will just make every aspect of anything that does become transactional that much easier.
I, I'm with you, and it does. It sounds almost unorthodox compared to what's taught out
Yeah.
there. It's nice to have some structure, and we have that. I have the rec qualifying sheet, the discovery call stuff like frameworks and questions. You could go line by line. And sometimes in the beginning you have to, but
Yeah,
as you evolve, there is a line between being too abstract and too freewheeling versus keeping things
absolutely.
right? And you want to have that, and it's a line that I balance at times. I was talking to a CRO and a head of marketing earlier today. That we're going to train up some of their reps and their team, and she was brand new to knowing anything about me, and that's
Yeah.
totally okay. And so I didn't have this crazy deck or demo. I was just like, well, let's go to LinkedIn. I'm going to show you some of the profiles I've worked with, the people I've worked with, and kind of what I'm looking at and kind of the effect. And then we could talk about it. We can interact. And it doesn't have to be crazy, but it was relevant to where she was at. Right.
Yeah.
And then I was like, throw questions at me like all day. And they had a bunch of questions for me. It's great. Let's tackle some of them. Right.
Yeah.
Like I have no problem embracing it. And they're like, and they're trying to be respectful of me, timing and all that. I'm like, guys, I'm good on timing. I want you guys to start this when it's the right time. Like,
Yeah.
like you don't have to sign up today. Like it's okay. Like I can pay the bills.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I want to do this right because I see the opportunity for them. I truly know what we can do to transform their team and their reps and their business. Like it's clear as
Yeah.
day to me, but they have to be able to see it, and they do see it now. And now with then timing in their business, they have different efforts going on, right? A lot of new people started. So are they able to even focus, right?
Yeah.
And I have to be respectful of that. How much time am I going to spend per week? I'm like, honestly, if you give me 3 to 5 hours a week, that's enough. That might seem like a lot, but give me those first 5 hours, and the way you view business development is going to completely shift. And you're going to become addicted to this way of doing it.
Oh yeah.
Right. And
Definitely.
because I've just seen it over and over again. Like, okay, a little bit of a learning curve. But then once you see it, right, you switch your profile, you get your first list going, your first campaign going, and replies start coming in and you feel like you didn't do any work.
Oh, it's so
and then
fun.
Content
It's so
happens,
fun.
right? You're like, wait,
Yeah.
what is happening right now?
It just every piece of it feeds every piece. I remember when we first implemented that particular program you're speaking of, I was just like, how does this even work? And then it started going, and then I remember waking up one morning and checking my inbox and it was just flooded. And then I was like, after I understood how the software worked, it's like, wait, not only can you use this to BD, you can also use it to source. And then when you make that connection, you make that connection with every other program that has somewhat of a similar infrastructure as that.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest aspect of my business. For my first ever job posting, I was like, okay, wait, so do staffing agencies, and this shows my inexperience, but do
At the
staffing
time.
agencies just source? And I mean, do they just do BD with clients and then post a LinkedIn job ad? That was my understanding of it until I got into understanding certain softwares like Zoom Info and some of the more less intricate automation programs. And I'm like, wait a second, if all this is just templating outreach to people, I can template this outreach to another group of people, and you can have as many outreach flows going on at the same time. So you can kind of just tackle a whole lot of things. And not only can you do that, you can connect that to a CRM and it has all of your follow-up cadences around. So you don't have to think, oh, wait, did I reach out to that person? Have I done any and everything that I can do to finalize this deal aside from a cold call? So it just really sets you up to hit all of the pieces that you may forget if you don't have everything zipped up.
Yeah, you can get to the bottom of the funnel so much quicker. And that's really
Absolutely.
what it is, right? It's systemizing the top of the funnel where
Hmm.
people end up spending so much time. And it's
Hmm.
like, and I think sometimes what happens, you implement the digital recruiter approach and system, and you're like, wait, what do I do with all this free time now? Right?
Yeah.
And that's like a whole other learning curve where not like you're in it more than you ever were before. And so you're able to actually dive deeper for the first time in a lot of instances with way more clients, way more candidates. And it's
Yeah.
like, and just to bombard it, I mean, that's kind of the phase two that I want to get people to. And then you got there quick. And then the phase three, right, kind of staying with it, making it make sense, capturing revenue from all this. But I love the way that you immediately piece that together, which is okay, clients is one thing, but candidates, you got to have both to pay the bills in recruiting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you leveraged it, and so much of it when people join is like, well, sales, BD, BD. I'm like, that's great, but what if you already have roles? Some of our biggest
Yeah.
successes is people
What
have
happens
roles.
when you get to step B? Like, okay, cool. Do you not think you're going to get to step B? What's going to happen when you get to it? Do you have a plan for
Exactly.
that? That was the connection that I think was the most obvious when I got into your program. It's like, okay, hey, he's showing you how to do the business development. You should be able to piece this together. If you're dissecting all of this information, putting in the work, going through the program and leveraging the resources like you guys gave to me, if you're not making that connection, you're not reading enough and you're not understanding what's given to you to make you succeed. Like you said, it's not a, hey, you're a recruiter. It takes effort, right? So
Yeah,
that
the
that
right
was
approach.
the big part for it for me.
No, I love that, and I think the stuff that we've done, and I've seen the ARM, full desk recruiters, split recruiters. I mean, there's a whole section where I've really thought about just teaching people how to recruit better on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, using some of the LinkedIn automation and the content because it's kind of a joke the pipelines that we're filling up for people on the recruiting side. I mean, it's fish in a barrel from construction industry to accounting and finance, like clinical, like industries where people are saying it's hard to find candidates. Well, we're making it look like a piece of cake. Systems
Yeah.
engineer, tier two support, like all within, we had a split agency partner the other day, like, 0 for 7 with individual, with farming out recs to other recruiters, right? And I'd like to get stuff in 48 hours, yada, yada. We had a submittal in 24 hours. Like a
Yeah.
submittal, a candidate set up for an interview within 24 hours. I know
Yeah.
submittals can be whatever. No, this is a client wanted to interview in 24 hours. Like, again, that's just kind of how we work, how we operate, right? We eat our
Yeah.
own dog food, even at digital recruiter talent group. Like it's the beauty because then, and I have another client. It's the same thing, right? 2 to 3 candidates on each role that they're covering.
Yep.
Okay, well, I guess I'll go do more business development now, and I have coverage on 7 roles, which is maybe double what you were able to do before 8 roles.
Yeah.
It would be 3.5 roles, right? So you're
Yep.
able to double your reach on the roles, go get more business development. Dude, that's how you get the numbers that you hit in
Yeah.
1 year. I mean, that's how the
For
math
sure.
works.
For
Yeah.
sure. And it was like, I've got a PI role, a sub I role, 2 CRC roles with two different clients, I'm able to send out, 75, 100 messages a day for sourcing those people out. So, you prioritize what hits. And, I got my first CRO client a couple months ago, which was what CRO strategies was built around the idea. But then when I realized how hard that was to do, I said, all right, I need to get into something that's a little bit more, it's a little bit easier to infiltrate.
Yeah.
And so I've now started getting into 1099 staffing through EOR, which is a whole nother game, and way more enjoyable as a recruiter than FTE.
Yeah. And I think
Um,
for your spread, just in case anyone's, I think your spread's already hit. You started what 2-3 months ago with that? Not even about 2-3 months ago.
yeah, it's ramped up quite a lot. I mean, the 1099 roles are directly affiliated with the specific project. So when they come fast. So, it's a lot.
I think your spread, which an Aerotech term, was like 18-20K already, and
Yeah,
you have the direct hire. I mean, which for anyone at the big staffing firms, that's way past contest level. So not only
yeah,
are you a top level contest level on the staffing side, then you have the agency side as well, the direct hire, right, which is a nice chill 500,000 last year in billing desk. So, I mean, the full doing it all, leveraging the system. I mean, I think you are showing what this thing at its capacity does, right? It's like a
yeah.
McLaren on the open road type of situation. Yeah,
Yeah, no, and I probably should have looped this into the previous client discussion I had with the private equity and all that stuff, but just different timelines because this one's a little bit more recent. But I love hunting after the smaller fish. They're way easier to prove your worth to. They listen to you. The procurement process isn't wildly extensive.
they
I mean,
need you.
yeah, and I had a friend of mine actually who I met and researched through another person that I staffed last year, um, who was in a really tough position, and I had just wiggled my way into this CRO a couple of months ago. Have given them some amazing CRAs, and being able to vet that rollout is kind of my bread and butter because that's the role I used to work. And I tell all of my clients, if you're not hiring, but I have a good candidate, I'm going to have you interview them because I never want to pass up, good people. And so my client wasn't actively interviewing anyone. And I said, hey, you need to interview with this person, just like how I took that call with that networking call with my friend Lisa. And now she's with them. She has a job now. She's stable. She's really happy. And my client loves her. And they weren't even hiring. And the aspect of opening up other business avenues within my entity um, also opens up there because I help research sites get trials, and so I've actually helped this CRO get staff, and now the CRO reaches out to me to tap into my network of sites. So I'm actually handling a site identification aspect of their business for them, which is now creating kind of the similar life cycle that I'm having with my research sites at a smaller level. So it's kind of domino affecting into other aspects of the business, which is really awesome to see as well.
I mean, you have made you make it look effortless and make it sound effortless. But let's just break this down. You tapped into the MPC, right? The most placeable candidate, which I keep telling people the best NPCs are to your current clients
Yep.
that don't have the job posting, right? And kind of be able to, hey, what role are you always hiring for? Should always be interviewing
Yep.
for. In this case, you kind of demanded it of them, and you have those terms in that relationship with that client. You got the friend a job; they're super happy. Right, a quality network, quality conversations every day. So you really mastered the art of the high level NPC, and then I'm also hearing that you have your recruiting hiring managers booking
Hmm.
meetings with you
Yep.
to
Yep.
see how else you can help them. I mean, that is
Yep.
that's the goal. I mean, honestly, people are going to book a call with you to get coaching, not me. At the end of this,
No,
but like
no.
that's the just how crazy that is when you take a step back and look at the whole business cycle. So I always say, don't worry about just a rec. Don't worry about rates and a rec. Like learn about their business, get curious, dig, do research. I just did a live with Kim Henderson, who was a longtime enterprise sales and agency, great coach, great sales coach for recruiters. And this is what we kept like just dig, get curious, like who were the key decision makers? What's the department? What challenges do they have? Any projects are on hold, right? Just get curious. And who knows what you can learn and what you can be that, worried about setting 5 meetings a week. Well, you won't because you could get people reaching out to you to set
Yeah.
meetings, right? Or how do I get an NPC? Well, if you have 20 conversations, find out what they're always willing to interview for and then recruit around that, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, the right approach, strategy, and questions, man, that could take you so far if you just are disciplined to do that every single interaction.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also to kind of piggyback on the going after the smaller clients, it's a two-way street. The bigger clients have more money to pay you what you're worth, but it's going to be a lot harder to wiggle into the right the doors, if you will. I know a lot of recruiters probably won't agree with this, but sacrificing to accommodate your clients' needs, especially if you're in it for the long haul, is huge. I had a client of mine who had an awful experience with a staffing agency, and I staffed them a position that was almost a $50,000 fee, and I told them I didn't want a dollar until the guarantee period was over. And I even signed a non-solicitation agreement because they are in a very competitive market. So I think that if you are truly in it for assisting your clients and understanding how the hiring affects your industry, which I obviously am a believer of the industry that you building your business in should be something that you're passionate about. You can kind of flex in terms of the payment terms, or if you're confident in your business proposition, you can make it work. And I think that's a thing that clients should understand as well. If someone wants to work with you and has a value prop, unless you're just extremely lowballing them, both parties will make it work. So don't get so caught up on the terms and the dollar figures. You do something really good for someone one time and they have a need for it again, there's your leverage.
And you did it to make sure we clarify this point. You did that from a position of strength, right?
Mhm.
You weren't worried. I mean, it wasn't like you knew they would hire. It was a valid reason they had gotten burned.
Yeah.
And I know the way you frame stuff, you don't do it from a place of weakness. It's just like, all right, let's talk about, okay, how do we kind of make this work? What if we do it this way, right?
Hmm.
We never do it, but in this case, I see the value, right? I see the value of a partnership. I know I can find a great person like this. I feel
Yeah.
so confident, and you know what I can do, and I know what your type of company is, but we're going to need an exclusive or whatever else, or if we turn this in, and there's no other recruiters, or we eventually work into a retainer, like that's the goal, right? Like you're still laying out a plan even with them of where you
Yeah.
eventually want to see this be in 6 months. Because you
Absolutely.
right, and like that's the key. It's not just start giving away your business or anything like that. Like there's still you're keeping the frame and the authority. Like
Yeah.
you're doing them a really big solid. You understand the context because you did a good job scoping. Like it's really key for people to know that and that are listening. Like
Yeah.
there's a tent even behind that strategy, and it's done at a strategic time in your business,
No,
right? Like,
absolutely. And I mean, I know this goes without really being said, but your organization is only good as the people that are working at it. And that is such an obvious statement, but the weight of that is crazy. I mean, I hire business development people for some of my clients before I got more involved with one of my new ventures. And like those people steer the ship. And if you hire someone that's really good, it makes the world of a difference. If someone hires someone that's really bad, it can crush it. So, vetting processes and understanding how vital a staffing agency really is to a company if they're accepted is the could be the turning point of an organization. If a company needs a staffing agency and you deliver good results, you are well worth and probably undervalued for what you're delivering nine
Yeah.
times out of 10. But,
They're just rare. They're rare to come across,
yeah,
but you can do it. You can build one. You're an example of it, and you bring, I think, that confidence, that passion into the industry. Like your worth, which I think is really the key to all this, and a ton of your success is like just knowing your worth, and that can evolve and change, right? In the market, but I think really being humbled with the results also don't lie. And you kind of you base it off that, right? You can kind of build more and more opportunities, more revenue based off like, okay, this is what I've done, right? When I haven't done anything, it's 6%. When I have and I know I can do it, it's 27% or whatever for bill
yeah,
rates and all that stuff. And so just like being patient to climb the ladder, and you can climb a heck of a whole lot in 16 months if you just
yeah,
just that intentional piece every day. So I love the story. I love the passion. Dude, it's been awesome partnering with you.
yeah,
I can't wait to see where this goes, like in the next few years, and how our paths continue to kind of cross and figure out different
yeah,
ways to work together. I'm just super appreciative of you kind of being on here. So we'll get
yeah.
close to winding down. I know you had a long day, a long week. You got a million things going on. Anything you want to leave the listeners with? I know we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah,
But
I feel like
anything
I
you want
just
to leave?
laid out my entire life story that I've been a little
Yeah,
incognito about.
yeah.
But no, man, I'm digital recruiter. If it wasn't for digital recruiter, my business would have never probably even really been created at the level that it did, especially at the rate it did. So I know I've always told you this, but forever in debt to you and your team for what you guys did for my business in its infancy. But no, I mean, I think we covered just about everything that I would want to chat about.
I love it. Well, I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate just all the work that you put in to kind of make it happen. It doesn't matter if I can give everyone everything, all the material, if people aren't putting into place like yourself and putting into practice, it doesn't mean a thing. So the fact that you did, your testimony to it, I appreciate that. So it's fun to work with you, fun to call you a friend, and appreciate you getting on here.
Yeah,
Really happy
likewise,
that
my
we were able
friend.
to get this out there. And hey, Walker's phone timer set it all for us. That is
Yeah,
all,
anyone, anyone,
folks.
anyone that knows me in a business setting is rolling their eyes right now because that's what I always get dogged
Uh,
on about because I have
the,
300 alarms for the most random stuff and I never turn them off. So
yeah,
that's a good
the
ending
the
there.
5:13 alarm to take your dog out. Yeah, so
Yeah,
classic, man. Well, I appreciate you, man. Well, I'm sure we'll definitely talk again soon. I'm
yeah.
sure we got another way to record down the line, but keep on with the success, man. Appreciate you being on here.
Awesome. Thank you, Clark.
All right, see y'all. See you next time.
Bye.